What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Dodgers starting pitcher Michael Grove, coming to us from Arizona at spring training. Michael, thanks for your time. How are you enjoying the spring so far?
It's been great. It's finally starting to warm up this week, so should be full steam ahead here.
Yeah, I was going to say, we were down there last week, and I had guys beforehand complaining about how cold it was, and I thought they were just soft Southern California guys that didn't know what they were talking about. And I get down there, and it's 50s. We had a game rained out. It was a bit of a mess down there, but I have heard 70 degrees are in your future, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's been chilly, but hopefully that's behind us now.
Awesome. Well, I've appreciated the time with you because this will be the third straight spring training that I've gotten a chance to chat with you. And as I was looking back on our conversation last year, you were reflecting on your 2021 season. And there was a comment that you made about that season where you said at one point you felt like you were the worst pitcher in the world. And fast forward about 2 years, May 15th, 2023, you're making your major league debut for a team that's going to go on to have one of the best regular seasons in Major League Baseball history. So I'm curious, kind of, when you step back and you think about I'm the worst pitcher in the world trajectory to making your major league debut for the Los Angeles Dodgers, like, what goes through your mind as you draw a line between those 2 points?
Yeah, I think once the season ended, I was able to kind of look back and just see the the trajectory and the roller coaster I went through a little bit, and it's hard to put into words, but yeah, to think that basically in a year's time, I went from where, I felt like I was really bad to figuring it out. And then all of a sudden you're in the big leagues, and then at the end of the season, being able to stay there for a little while. It's just a testament to all our coaches and our development and them trusting me and us working through it together and, coming out better on the other side.
Yeah, well, I want to get to sort of spring training and how you're feeling going into this year, but I do want to sort of sit in that moment of that major league debut for a little bit, because that's a moment most of us will never get to experience. Somebody who has a dream of one day I want to be a Major League Baseball player, which seems like a crazy dream for 99.9% of the world. And yet you kind of got to realize that. So you're at home, you're against the Phillies, and the first inning is Hoskins, Baum, and Schwarber, and you go 1-2-3 with the strikeout. Like, are you even present in that moment? Is that an out-of-body experience? Like, where are you at?
Yeah, no, I mean, I always tell people the first inning, like, I was just floating and I don't even really remember it. I remember the strikeout, but, like, I don't know if I could even walk you through the pitches I threw. Go 3 up, 3 down, and then have the long second, and I'm like, oh no. Finally, then I get through it and get another inning plus. So again, like a little bit of a roller coaster there, but yeah, I mean, just going out there in Dodger Stadium and like hearing the music pregame, and it was really special. Just families there and just getting to share that with everybody. It was awesome.
Well, not to make you relive that second inning entirely, but it's kind of, you used the word roller coaster a couple times. I mean, these are the types of innings that guys just have. And in some ways it feels like it's unavoidable. So you get out of the first really, really easily. Then it's a strikeout, single, strikeout, walk. And then there's the error. Should be out of the inning, but you're not out of the inning. Then it's a ground rule double. It's a single, a walk, and then a fly out with the bases loaded. So you kind of limit some damage. But again, I'll never experience this. Like, how in that moment after the error and then maybe after the double, like, how are you keeping yourself in your first major league appearance optimistic, positive? Like, how do you get to the right mind frame to sort of see that inning out?
I think you get to a point where it's less about what's going on, and it's more about just competing. And you go into it with this, this is my debut, and like I said, you're floating for a little while, and then the game hits you in the face, and you're like, well, crap, I have to get out of this. I let that damage leak a little bit long there, but yeah, you reach a point where it's like, okay, I don't really care where I'm playing, if this is the big leagues or if this is the Sandlot, but it's like I have to compete and I have to get out of this inning because I need to give our team some innings here and do my job. So I think that's where the second inning towards the end of it is where I really like settle into this is just another game, as opposed to just still being like wide-eyed and like emotional.
Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned it. You get through the third, you get 2 outs in the fourth inning. When you look back on that debut, um, are you kind of like, okay, good. I'm glad that's behind me? Are you sort of, dang it, the nerves got to you a little bit? Did you feel like you got unlucky? Like, how do you process that game in real time? Moving on at that point, I'm guessing not really knowing what the next 3 or 4 days of your life are going to look like.
Right. I think that looking back on it, I would say it's more on the side of I'm glad it's behind me, but um, it wasn't amazing. I don't think it was terrible. So it was just you know, I got it behind me. It was amazing. It was really exciting. It was realizing my dreams, and so now it's like I move forward from there. And what can I take away from that? What can I learn? I was, pretty confident I was going to be optioned right after. So, what do I need to work on when I go back to AAA? So you get to start, thinking about the baseball aspect of it as opposed to just the nerves and all that.
I'm curious. I got to ask, as a pitcher, 3 2/3, 4 runs, but none of them earned. I mean, how do you, that's such a bizarre stat line. I mean, like, how
Yeah.
quickly do you go, how quickly in the explanation does it get to, no, none of those runs were earned, though, just to be clear, 0.00 ERA.
Well, that's what all my friends and everybody back home will be quick to point out. But for me, I was just glad. I got off the hook at the end of the game, and it was like Gavin, obviously bailing me out was pretty sweet. So the walk off on my debut was awesome too. So I'm just glad we won the game, and that way, it would feel a lot worse if you lost.
Yeah.
Knowing how that one inning went.
Okay, so the rest of the year, you're down for 2 weeks, then you make one relief appearance, then you're down again. 3 months later, you're back up at the major leagues. What is, I mean, we keep using the word roller coaster. Like, are the Dodgers talking you through, like, hey, you're not going to be up for another 3 months? Or is it just kind of day to day, week to week? Like, well, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Like, is there communication? What's that like for you as you're trying to prepare sort of for both the major leagues and the minor leagues as a starter and as a reliever? What's that like?
It's tough. That was the toughest thing about the year was just the uncertainty. And they'll always tell you just stay ready, whatever you're doing, because it'll be, the morning of my start day in AAA, and I'll get a call at 11 a.m. Hey, you're not going to pitch today. You're going to pitch in 2 days, or you're going to go be in the bullpen in 2 days, whatever it is. And so just the mental aspect of it, because, you go through these mental cycles where you get really hyped up for your game, and then, it's game day, you do it, and then it all just comes right back down to the bottom, and you build it up over the course of the week again. And so, you reach that day where you're supposed to pitch, and they say, hey, you're not pitching, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it was a lot of mental learning, honestly, just being prepared for different roles, and like you said, not knowing when you're going to get called up or in what capacity. So just trying to find a way to be ready to pitch no matter what.
Stay ready. What does that mean? Like, how can you possibly, what does it mean to stay ready? I mean, as pitchers, most of you have such sort of defined routines, and the routines exist because there's science and there's history that tells us there are certain days you shouldn't pitch and certain days you should pitch and how much you should throw and all that. And yet at the same time, they're like, stay ready feels like one of these baseball terms that from the outside, I'm like, does that even mean anything? Or is it just this phrase that we tell people and hope that they kind of figure out what it means?
Yeah, I think look, like the team and the organization are never going to put you in a spot where like it's unhealthy for you. So I'm not going to be pitching on 3 days rest after throwing 90 pitches in AAA. That just won't happen. But staying ready, I guess, for me just means know exactly what you need to pitch every day. Like if you're on, your start day, know that if they call you and say you are pitching in 3 days in LA, it's like, okay, well, what do I need on these 3 days leading up to that to make sure that I'm treating it like it is my start. Yeah. And, that's a tough adjustment to make just because, like you said, it's we get fixed into such set routines, especially as starters. But I learned a lot about how to prepare, whether it's for a start, and then I had to learn how to prepare like it's a bullpen. Yeah. Because the two things are completely different. And you have to talk to the guys and just try to lean on them as much as you can. Like, hey, what do you guys do? And figure it out.
How comfortable are you coming out of the bullpen at this point? I mean, obviously you've started basically your entire life, 95% of your appearances as a professional. I mean, I guess they sometimes in the minors, they kind of mix it up and have guys come out of quote unquote out of the bullpen, essentially making starts. But As we're going to talk about in 2023, there's a chance that the bullpen is the easiest pathway to major league appearances this year. And so do you feel like you have a rhythm and a routine set up where you can be successful coming out of the bullpen, or is that still a work in progress?
I think that, like anything, the more you do something, the easier it gets. But I'm confident that I'll be able to put myself in a position to be, in a good spot coming out of the pen. But I just haven't done it much. Like you said, we've had openers in the minor leagues, but pretty much I'm coming in the second inning.
Yeah.
And I had the 1/9 inning last year in the big leagues that I was basically just cleaning up. But I think that there's enough guys that have enough experience, excuse me, that, you can talk to guys if I am thrown into that role and be like, hey, really go in depth about what do you guys do every day lifting wise, or when do you start playing catch, or at what point in the game do you do the plyos? I think I spent about a week in the bullpen last year, and I just learned so much about their routines and kind of mindsets, which is a lot different than starting.
Do you have guys sort of on the current roster that you go to for advice, either as a starter or as a reliever? Are there certain guys that you kind of have just naturally gravitated towards?
I think that obviously we've had a little bit of movement in our bullpen since last year, but like Vesia and Evan Phillips, last year, even Kimbrel, it's just those guys, they'll talk to you and just be like, hey, if I was you, it's like in the fifth inning, you need to be ready for the fourth or the fifth, because after that we'll probably be okay. Yeah. And so it kind of helped me figure out my timing as far as throwing plyo balls, or getting up and moving around when I'm down in the bullpen, and kind of learning what my role is going to be. So they try to look after you as much as they can.
What about a guy like Mitch White? Obviously not with the organization anymore, but I mean, like, are there certain guys who have kind of been in that sixth starter, long man kind of spot starter role that you've been able to pick their brains?
Yeah, Mitch for sure when he was down in AAA, and he had it way worse than I did, or than some of the other guys that I'm with had it. He got optioned like 13 times in one season.
Yeah.
Before the rule change. So
yeah,
you want to talk about going through it. He was down in AAA with us for a little while last year, and definitely we talked about it, and he was a good person to lean on.
Yeah. Okay. So big picture, looking back on last year, I'll read you some of your stat line, and you tell me kind of which of these numbers jumps out to you the most. So ERA you finished with, you could probably tell me all these numbers, but your ERA is 4.6. You have 24 strikeouts, 29 in the third innings, 19 walks, 6 home runs allowed. I'm curious, as you hear those numbers, is there one that jumps out to you as something you're like, I need to improve that, or something that you're like, hey, I was, this is up trending in the right direction?
I think the home runs, I think most of them were solo shots. So, my thought process is I always want to be aggressive, and especially with nobody on, it's like I'm going to give up solo home runs because I hate walking people. But I definitely have thrown some pitches to guys where, they have one spot you can't throw it, and I've thrown it there. And that's kind of things you learn in the big leagues that you can get away with in AA that you can't get away with once you get there.
Yeah.
So that's something I want to clean up. I think the rest of them, strikeouts and walks and ERA, I think that all just takes care of itself. There's going to be games where you have a bunch of strikeouts and games where you have none. So,
yeah.
And then the ERA again, like as you pitch innings, just staying with your routine and your scouting. I think that just takes care of itself.
Is that nobody on base approach? Is that like an organizational thing where they say, hey, be aggressive here? Like, we'll live with the home run every once in a while, as long as you're not walking guys consistently. Or is that kind of just sort of the way that you've been brought up and the way that you choose to attack?
That's more of just me. I think that, I don't think, and nobody wants to give up home runs.
Sure.
But,
yeah. I phrased that poorly. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just think that in my head that if I'm getting beat on one of my good pitches with nobody on base, that's not better than a walk, but my mentality is I'm going to attack every hitter I see. And then, once you get a runner or two on base, then all of a sudden you have to be a little bit more careful about location and a little bit better about sequencing, and because you're trying to strike people out at that point. So, I'm just trying to say that I want to be aggressive as much as possible.
It's awesome. Okay, last number for you. I was looking over at your Fangraphs. Your expected ERA last year was 3.10, so much better than your actual ERA. Do you care about that at all? Like, do you look at that and find some positive encouragement, motivation from that? Or is that a number that like people like me might look at and somebody like you could care less about?
It's interesting. I didn't know that actually. I think that a lot of that just has to do with I threw 29 innings. So I think stuff tends to even out in the long run. Maybe that means I got a little bit unlucky, but again, it's in the next 29 innings, maybe I get really lucky and they become, they blend together. So I don't look too much at my ERA because I know how I'm throwing the ball just based on, my own personal expectations and things like that. And that doesn't mean that one game I'm not going to get hit for 7 runs, but it means that just, I think over the course of time, if I stick to my approach and do what I do well, that I think, I'll be in a good spot at the end of the season.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look to 2023 here before we get you out of here. How are you feeling? Like right now, where you are, your age, where you're at in your career, heading into 2023, kind of the state of the roster. How would you describe big picture how you're feeling about Michael Grove's career?
I'm feeling really good. I think that broad scope that I haven't thrown a ton of innings in my life, so I'm still learning on the fly here. I had a lot of mechanical stuff to clean up in the minor leagues, and now I'm finally at a point where I'm able to kind of talk to guys about actually pitching and about how, the chess game behind it and things like that. So I think I'm at the stage where I can really start growing and start learning from some of these guys with, a more developed arsenal and that sort of thing. So I'm not overly concerned about the roster situation or anything like that, because I know that if I take care of what I do and I can do it well, that I'm good enough to be on the roster and I will get there. So yeah, it's really just about me and about how I'm attacking hitters as much as possible.
Have the Dodgers had conversations with you kind of about how they see both 2023, what your role would be, whether it's out of the bullpen, whether it's a starter, or even kind of, the long term over the next 3 or 4 years, what they see your trajectory being?
No, we haven't really had those conversations. I'm kind of open for anything because they still got to see what happens the rest of spring, and that may have something to do with my role, immediately and then also down the line. So again, just kind of trying to put myself in the best situation. I'm still being built up as a starter, obviously, but so that's where I'm kind of planning on to start the year.
So do you just go in with, okay, I'm a starter right now? Like until told otherwise, you're just building up to be a starter. You're planning on starting, whether it's in LA or whether it's in Oklahoma City or somewhere else. Like I'm going to be a starter until they tell me otherwise.
Absolutely. At least I'm planning on being a bulk inning type of guy.
Okay.
Regardless.
Okay. One more question. Well, 2 more questions here. This one's a longer one, so I apologize in advance. But I spent a lot of time thinking about talking about the Dodgers. And so when I look at the Dodgers roster, there's kind of 5, the starting rotation, unlike last year where there were sort of 6 guys competing for 5 spots, it feels like they've got 5 guys and you could pretty confidently, if everybody's healthy, which I say, as right before it's going on, we're talking about Tony Gonsolin, but those guys all expected to be healthy by opening day. You've kind of got your 5 starters. And then beyond those, there's this group of younger pitching prospect guys, including yourself, who seem to be kind of battling it out for who's 6th on that list and who's 7th on that list. And so it's Pepio and it's you, it's Miller, it's Stone, Maestrini, Jackson, on and on and on. In the Dodgers organization, you could probably name about 15 guys in that list. But
no doubt.
When I hear folks nationally talk about that group, as somebody who's gotten a chance to talk to you and roots for you personally, it seems like your name doesn't always get mentioned in that group from people that aren't necessarily day-to-day following this team. Maybe it's because of your age. Maybe it's because of prospect lists, whatever it might be. But I don't know if you pay any attention to that or not. I'm curious. You've kind of referenced it a little bit. Like, do you find yourself paying attention to that stuff? Do you notice that stuff? Do people say things like that to you? Does that motivate you? Do you not care? How do you process kind of all of that?
Yeah. To answer like the first part of your question, just about the roster, it's again, yeah, we have 5 starters that are probably penciled in, and that's why I keep saying, all I can do is try to become the best version of myself and grow as much as possible. Is because stuff always happens during the season, and there's going to be a chance, and you want to just be in a great spot to take advantage of it. And then the second part of your question, I don't really pay attention to the prospect stuff because, I'm in a spot where I know what I'm competing for and I know what my opportunities are going to be. And I know that that's completely determined by me and by how I play, excuse me. So, and the other guys like Pep, like you said, Pep, Andre, Stoner, and Bobby, it's like, I mean, these guys are all phenomenal pitchers, like premium stuff, really good arms. And it's really fun. And I think that we actually, more so than compete against each other, I think that we can learn from each other because everybody does something really well. I mean, Pep, Andre, and Stone have some of the best changeups I've ever seen, and Bobby obviously throws 100. It's and he can make the ball move everywhere. So it's cool to be able to just talk about grips and just kind of all of us are in the same bucket, like you said. So we can kind of experience the same things together. So I don't really care where people rank us. It's just because I know that if I'm at my best, that I'm good enough to be on our big league team regardless. So that's kind of my mentality.
Yeah, and that last piece was what I find, what I was going to kind of follow up and ask about is like how you get to a place of believing that. Like when you look to your left and right and say, I'm good enough to be on that roster, to be in the 26-man, the 13-man pitching rotation, whether that's one of the 5 starters, whether that's a 6 starter, whether it's a bullpen guy, that kind of thing. Again, just to bring it full circle, I mean, we're talking about 3 years ago, the sort of the depths of despair, so to speak, without exaggerating, of where you were to where now you're looking at the team who has the highest projected win total of any team in all of Major League Baseball. And you've gotten to a point where you can look to your left and to your right and say, I belong here. And not only do I belong here, like in spring training or something, but I belong on the opening day roster. That's got to be like a pretty awesome feeling, right?
Yeah, it's just nice. Like I said, that I got to the place where it clicked, and it took a long time to get to that spot. I missed a couple of years with my surgery, and then came back and stuff wasn't really the same, and then stuff went way haywire. So just fighting through all that stuff, finding a place where I feel like I can be consistent, and like I said, where it clicked, and then now building from that basically, as that's almost my baseline now, is the second half of 2021. And it's like from there, now we're going to grow as a pitcher. We're going to take that skeleton and go forward. So this almost feels like it's only my, third or fourth, maybe third year professionally, because like I said, I'm finally getting to be a pitcher and have those conversations, which is amazing.
It's awesome. Okay. Last question, 2-parter. Spring training 2023. What would you like to see from yourself? What are benchmarks you're shooting for that between now and the end of March, you're like, if I can do A, B, and C or whatever, then this spring will have been successful?
Yeah, I think that my slider has a little bit different of a shape this year, and I've been working really hard on it. And then I still am throwing the big curveball. So I want to be able to consistently land that curveball like I was towards the end of the year last year. And then kind of use my fastball and my slider as punch out weapons. So, landing that big curveball for strikes, and then getting that other slider in play and seeing how lefties react to it, because I didn't throw sliders to lefties a ton last year. And then I also have a changeup that I want to sprinkle in as well, just to see where it's at. So I'm just trying to gauge the reactions to my pitches, and if I can get stuff in a pretty consistent lane where I'm throwing everything for strikes, then I'll be in a good spot.
Well, I was at the Arizona game, and Corbin Carroll, first AB, 3-pitch strikeout with 97 on pitch number 3. That had to feel pretty good.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm hoping that I can keep that velo. It's nice having the extra 1 or 2 when you need it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I had that at the end of the season last year. So, but yeah, just confident right now, and trying to just, see where the stuff's at and see how guys are reacting to it.
Yeah. Okay. For 2023 as a season to be successful, what has to happen? Or I should say, successes in 2023 looks like what?
For me, just, picking up where I left off and then adding the new stuff. I think I can be really good with it. I think that as a team, we're going to have some young guys that I think are going to really help. So We just want to win, man.
Yeah.
So I want to be on that playoff roster at the end of the season when we're competing for a World Series. That's
Awesome.
success.
Well, Michael, I appreciate the time. I know it's a busy spring, and you're going to be pitching here in the next couple of days. So thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of the spring, and best of luck this season.
Yeah, thank you.